This is the Morning Prime. Thank you very much for choosing us this morning. Looking at the current affairs, bringing you up to speed because, as cliche as it sounds, information is the highest power. All right, talk to us at KTN News across all the social media platforms. You can also find me at Doris Anki, sending in your feedback, especially around matters economics. This is Bunge, of course, the Sokoni economic conversations. But we have the very interesting development on the Bunge Towers, which I know now a lot of you are familiar with. And we're expecting the President, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, to officially open the Bunge Towers today. I want to go there straight to the Bunge Towers, and the live pictures coming to screen is the environment as it is, the atmosphere as you can see, pomp and color. You can also follow closely with me. You're seeing officials just walking across the camera. That is the situation as it is this morning at the Bunge Towers, where President William Ruto is expected to open the towers officially this morning. I am also informed that there are members of parliament who have already arrived at the location, members of parliament who are already on the location, including the minority leader in the House, Opiyo Wandayi, that is the National Assembly, and the majority leader, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. So basically what we're seeing today is the opening of the Bunge Towers, which for a while came out as a bit controversial. In fact, members of parliament came out, a section of them, complaining that it wasn't really fit and up to standard to be their offices. However, we're seeing progress in all this, that these Bunge Towers are expected to be opened officially today. We have on location our own reporter, David Muthoka, who is on standby. Essentially, we do our best to give you the coverage as clear and accurate as possible. So many thanks. David Muthoka will speak to us shortly and give us updates. We'll give him updates on what is happening when we get him. But for now, it's just live pictures. We're seeing, of course, Honorable Osoro there, just together with the other, members of parliament. The pictures are live, and you see the red carpet. Anytime from now, we're expecting His Excellency Dr. President William Ruto to make his way to the Bunge Towers for the official opening today. So a lot of stories have come up, including the budget that was put in earlier years, say about 2009, during Kenneth Marende as a speaker tenure, into the amount of money that was used to bring to completion this particular towers, coming into about 9 million. So all these particular stories and news around it. However, eventually and ultimately, we're seeing that President William Ruto is set then today to come in and officially open the Bunge Towers. Once again, what you're seeing are live pictures from the Bunge Towers. We keep tabs with our reporter on location, David Muthoka, who, once ready, will join us live for that particular event. But for now, we will continue with the conversation this morning. But do not forget that at KTN News is where you can find us for more updates. So don't miss that particular opening as well, based on what it will serve for the members of parliament and for you as a Kenyan. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. In fact, if you want to also comment on the Bunge Towers, we can begin from that. We need a house that works. A lot of our petitions go to the parliament. That's where we have our budgets read out. That's where we have our, financial year acts. So it's a very important thing that we have spaces for our members of parliament to concentrate and work. And let me start from, Tuva on this one.
Yeah.
We just took a break after reading the corruption investigations and ESCC on top of its game.
Yeah.
But now we also have the Bunge Towers, which should work for Kenyans.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what would be your perspective this far on this? Is it a development for you, or is it contrary to development?
Okay, let's start on the corruption bit first.
Okay.
Right? You're talking about a budget which is almost doubled over the last few years. Yeah. So if you look at the current budget which was used to finish Bunge, quote unquote finish, and what they initially started with. So is there corruption there?
Or was it proposed?
Or proposed.
You might not really know.
Yeah.
So
So basically such things. So going back to some of our leaders also, you're talking about the kind of numbers they're talking about, 8.2 billion. These are the kind of figures you don't see anywhere. So again, do we stop working and just join politics again? Is that what they're trying to tell people, that the only place where there's money is this? So people need to be very careful about who we put into these places, and some of these individuals in government, we are told there's something called budgeted corruption, right? So how do they do it? Is there a way to stop it? And is there anything we can do about it? We're talking about a head of state who recently said that we know for sure we have X amount of people, right, who don't have degrees, who are working in our government, and is there anything we're able to do about it? So you're talking about a country compared to, let's say, America, where a head of state did X and currently is currently in court. So those are some of the things we need to compare ourselves in.
Now, because you mentioned it, I will not let it slide. You talked about budgeted corruption.
Budgeted corruption.
Please make it simple for the Kenyan watching this morning, because we throw it in the air many times as panelists. Oh, we have budget corruption, we devolve corruption. So now bring it. Let them be at par with what you meant by budgeted corruption.
Okay, I'll give you 2 examples. I'll talk about some of our counties and the amount of money they spend on quote unquote remodeling our offices or government offices. You're talking about someone very high in office spending 10 million, 11 million on curtains, right? So if you follow it correctly, he's used the right channels to get whatever. But is it really a curtain's worth 10 million? Right? Are some of the offices, the chairs, we're looking at a chair at 250,000, 500,000. Is it really realistic? So to me, that is what I call budget corruption. It's things which we know for sure this pen costs 10 shillings, but we set a higher budget to allow people to get something in something in the middle. So to me, that is budget corruption, and it affects the whole economy at the end of the day, starting from the very top.
Because as we are speaking, we're seeing, of course, the live pictures from the Bunge Towers. The Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, has just arrived, of course, just saluting. And we can also see the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Wetangula, just over there, just speaking with the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. You can see that there is good body language. I do not know what you're seeing, Professor, as far as the body language is concerned. It's some positive energy.
It's good optics. I wonder whether some of them came from the same homes. They are wearing the same uniforms.
Did you actually call them uniforms?
Yeah, you can see the suit. The suit is the same. But you can see there's a lot of camaraderie, there's a lot of excitement. And it's interesting that this Bunge Tower took so long to be built.
Okay.
They went over the budget. But I think I'm not very much bothered with the height and the number of rooms in that Bunge Tower.
Okay.
The quality of ideas that will come from that parliament.
The qualities of ideas.
Yes, that's what I want, not the building. Because I think in this country we are focused too much on buildings and structures, not the ideas that come from that place. If somebody asks you, if I asked you whether you have ever seen any building from Harvard University, you probably can't recognize any. But the ideas that come from there matters a lot. If you look at the U.S. Parliament or the U.S. Senate building or House of Congress, the building, it has been there for the last 200 years. So it's not so much the building, but the quality of ideas. And that's what we should be focusing on in this country. Who go to that building and do they give us ideas and policies and laws that move this country forward? That should be the focus of our discussion.
However, having lived the years we have lived, Philip, I'm coming to you. We have had, this is the 13th Parliament.
Yes.
To speak of. And one of the things that inspired the building of the Bunge Towers was space. Let's talk about I don't want to call them high standard officers, but at least reasonable officers for members of parliament to be stationed to work. So do you feel this is progress for the country to even start with?
It brings a very interesting issue, because when COVID came,
yes,
one of the things that came out clear is that you can work without offices.
But is it possible?
Yeah, we have had parliamentary proceedings through Zoom.
Okay.
We teach classes online.
Is it efficient as much as being physically there?
Of course, people want to see each other, pat each other on the back and so on. But I think we should focus more on the quality of ideas, not where people sit, not where people come from, not where people sit or where they come from. I can come up with a very good idea sitting on the grass. I don't necessarily need to go to a 5-star hotel. I can come up with great ideas when I'm driving the car. I don't need to go and sit in a very good place. So let's focus put premium on the quality of ideas, not where people work, not where they sit.
You know, the government, as given in the Constitution, is not only the top officers, but it's of the people, by the people, for the people. The questions raised around Bunge, and this is just for accountability. As Pande, do you feel that there was enough clarity on the Bunge towers and enough investigation to this point where it's being opened? Are you satisfied that you are ready for the Bunge towers official opening as a Kenyan? And of course, you are a leader for the youth inclusion. Yes.
Doris, it's a long overdue. The towers has been under construction for a long time. Of course,
years.
yeah, partially in use because I've visited my friends at the tower.
Okay, so it was partially in use?
Yes.
Okay.
And
He should be telling us he's well connected. He's not like us.
I think that's an assumption Prof is making here, but I try to go around these spaces. So I think it's deserved for members of parliament to have good and comfortable spaces where they can work from, have their committee meetings, and just meet people around and so forth, because many times they have to cross over to KICC for office work and go to other places. You walk in those corridors, Arambe Avenue, you'll always meet them. I think the Bunge Tower serves them. I also hold the opinion that when we commence projects, they must come to completion. We have many white elephants in this country, Doris, and I'm proud that Bunge Towers is certainly not one of them today as it's opened. The cost might be one thing that we talk about, and I'll give you an example. In our devolved units, we have projects that were initiated by governors in the first life of the counties in 2013 that are yet to be completed today. You have a stadium, for example, in Kajiado County, where 200 million was put into the project, and it's never been completed to date. We have projects that year in, year out are budgeted for and are just cash cows, top-ups, inflation of cost to, double the initial budget, to triple the initial budget. And that's not how we are supposed to live.
I'm sorry, but what is the financial implication of these stalled projects? In fact, yesterday, on the front page of the Star, I actually have it here, the auditor just gave 10 counties straight up of stalled projects that are gobbling about 12 billion shillings. So this is what you mean? Yes.
So the implication is you are not just wasted money, but you have a lot of investment stuck and not giving value to the county. If we're talking about a health facility, for example, you're talking about patients not being able to get admission or bed space because you have not completed. These are resources that are supposed to basically help the county move to the next level, to offer services to our people, because that's the most and the biggest concern that we have with counties, service provision. You're talking about resources that are not earning counties revenues, okay? 12 billion that is not returning any investments to counties. 12 billion out of, for example, 385 billion that was given to counties in this ending fiscal year is such a substantial amount. It's basically what some of these counties need to survive. For example, the budget of Kisumu County is about 10 billion. So you're talking about an entire county's budget stuck in projects that are not functional. You're talking about the budget of Lamu County, for example, for 5 fiscal years. Okay, that's the magnitude of wastage, of stagnation that counties are experiencing with projects that are stalled. My take is that EACC, for example, should investigate all stalled projects, and before Exchequer is released to start new projects, the controller of budget should ensure that these projects are actually completed, because we can't say that 200 million was wasted, so that's the end of the story. No, complete the project. If somebody stole the money, recover the money, because they're either stuck in some assets within this country or offshores. So recover that money to ensure that that project is completed and it's giving value for money and services to our people.
Professor, Tuva, I'm not sure I skipped you.
Yeah, I think you can. I haven't talked yet. But
okay, please talk, and then I can hear from Professor, because it's one thing to complete a project.
Yeah.
Of course, not have it stalled. It's another thing to have it built for 14 years.
Yeah.
Is there any financial implication to that? The number of years you take to build a project?
I think there is. Here's the thinking. It's like buying a matatu, putting it in the garage for all that. You're still paying that loan. So there's interest being paid on that particular project. That money is not just so free. We got it from somewhere, right? A bond or whatever. We got it from somewhere, and it's currently just seated for over a decade, yeah? And not adding any value to us, right? But the most concerning bit is, how did we actually see this thing? I think it was an expose which triggered all this reaction from one of the TV stations. That's basically what is sad. It was something internal which triggered the actual opening of the Bunge Towers in my vision. From what I've seen, they seem very happy. They seem excited, right? They seem happy, which is a good thing. At least we know that when something which is good for all of them comes together, they're happy and whatever. But they should also think about the common mwananchi, right? And what these projects, elephant projects, are actually costing us, right? Because at the end of the day, we're still paying for the interest. We're still, taxes are still being used for the wrong thing, right? So that would be my one and only concern regarding such mammoth projects.
Professor, when you hear him say taxes being used for the wrong thing,
I am even more worried, because one of the biggest issues in this country has been reducing the level of debt.
right?
So how can we be talking about looking for money to pay for debt, but be also wasting at the same time? So maybe one way to bring down the cost is to make sure that such projects are completed on time, because the longer a project takes, the more the price escalates. For example, if you had a construction project last year, cement was going for about 600 shillings. Now it's almost 1,000. So the more that project is delayed, the more it becomes costly to the taxpayers, because they're not using their pocket money. It is you and me who is paying for this project. So let's always have projects that we complete. Now, if you look at the ripple effect of that to the economy, it becomes very expensive. And finally, it's good we are opening the Bunge Tower.
Right.
But can we also have other projects complete just like Bunge, so that they are put into the right use? And it's not just for the Waheshimiwas. Let's also think about the projects for the vulnerable members of the society, the primary schools, the dispensaries, and other projects that affect the ordinary Wanjiku on the streets. It also matters. But I think the issue of cost in complete projects, we should look at it. We should make sure the projects are finished on time, and those who cause the delay are penalized for that.
Those who cause the delay are penalized for that. Gentlemen, allow me to just bring to you the number of counties and the specific stalled projects, because I'm sure that people in authority are equally watching. And I'm drawing this from the auditor's report, of course, the Controller of Budget, Nancy Gathungu, as well. And top county here, Nairobi, with the stalled project called Lakisama, Majengo, Mabatini Health Centers, which cost about 1.36 billion shillings. Kiambu County, also on the spot, with Bibirioni level, of course, Bibirioni Hospital, which is also a stalled project, costing about 285.99 million shillings. Baringo, with the Eldama Ravine Guest House, a stalled project that cost about 517.47 million shillings. Nakuru, with the county treasury headquarters stalled project that cost about 886 million shillings, and I'm trying to move as fast as I can, but it's important that the public is informed. Turkana has the stalled project that is the county headquarters building. All right, gentlemen, that cost about 397 million shillings. West Pokot also has a stalled project that is 798 projects are stalled. All right, it cost 1.81 billion shillings. Also, Tana River, when we had the senator here the other day who spoke strongly on this matter, 58 projects stalled at Tana River that cost the taxpayer about 825.85 million shillings. And I'm wrapping up. Kitui County on the spot with the health projects that have stalled, that have cost the taxpayer 573.55 million shillings. Nyamira County, that is county headquarters, stalled 382.97 million shillings. And Trans Nzoia Teaching and Referral Hospital, that has cost 1 billion shillings. Now, what sayeth you watching from back at home? Send your feedback at KTN News. Gentlemen, speaking of labor, you all have come here, but you have places of work. And the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and the Social Protection, Florence Bore, launched the National Skills Development Policy, National Policy Framework for Career Guidance, and National Guidelines for Sector Skills Committees. Now, Bore says this move by the ministry is a solution to the challenge of skills mismatch, a matter that has been of great concern and has affected the employment rate. The skills mismatch represents the discrepancy between the skills that are sought by employers and the skills that are possessed by individuals. The government is now taking bold steps towards aligning the labor market by involving the industry players and training institutions to deliver the demand-driven skills. Let's listen in.
Future where individuals of any age and any point in their lives are assisted to manage their careers, including making informed education, training, and occupational choices. A future where there is a smooth transition from education and training to the labor market, and a future where education and training is aligned to the rapidly changing labor market.
Labor absorption. I know sometimes people don't fully appreciate this term, but what it means is it's not just that you have some kind of growth or support for a sector, but it's actually hiring people, creating jobs. There's a lot of fads out there: green economy, blue economy, digital economy, so many things. But is it creating jobs? How many jobs? We have to ask ourselves those hard questions in every program that we develop together.
I want to start with Pande on this discussion. Youth inclusion, gentlemen. And this is our own production here on the Standard. Jobs. What jobs? All right? Soaring joblessness. And I'm sure the youth are watching this morning. Kenya is witnessing increasing levels of unemployment, coupled with mass layoffs, gentlemen, by distressed firms and reduced earnings for those retaining jobs, according to a new report, which blames high taxation, soaring interest rates, unpredictable policies, and government failures to settle bills owed to suppliers.
Doris, you remarked that all of us have some places of work.
I assume so. I'm sorry to assume.
Yeah, my day-to-day responsibility is at Corporate Career Academy, which goes and runs in tandem with the subject on labor and access to jobs. Last year we had the East African Employability Summit. For the first time we're having it again this October, to put to perspective the issue of not just unemployment but employability skills. Federation of Kenyan Employers shared with us a report last year on skills, and the mismatch is unfathomable. We have a huge gap of people looking for jobs, but jobs that are not really welcoming them in terms of the quality of skills or what they espouse at employees needing those opportunities. Because one is that soft skills have not been prioritized by our institutions, and that's one huge shortcoming. If you look at the Inter-University Council for East Africa, earlier February this year, I had an interaction with the executive secretary, and he said that we are speaking the same language. The Corporate Career Academy and the council are speaking the same language on transition to the job market. And why is transition difficult? Is it just because we do not have enough? We have in excess of labor, but labor that is not qualified for the market. What employers are demanding is not what our institutions, unfortunately, are producing. So we have to upskill, we have to retool, we have to reskill young people that are looking for jobs. Interestingly, the Ministry of Labor has established a new department on labor migration, I think, that helps now the transition of our young people from the local market to foreign markets. Yes, Prof remarks that we need to send high caliber qualifications or professionals to the external market. The truth is, if you go to any Ivy League university across the globe, you'll find a Kenyan working in those institutions as a professor, as a lecturer. So the quality is not a doubt, but as we export our labor, are we able to do, first of all, reskilling and retooling? I'll give you one fundamental example. The Director General of Health, in acting capacity, Dr. Amoth, recently said that we have a crisis of employing clinical officers, for example, in Kenya today, because this particular course was introduced in the market to help deal with the challenge of shortage of doctors. Now, we've ended up qualifying and graduating so many of the clinical officers that they've bloated the market. We no longer need any more of them to be graduated from our institutions. But what are we doing? Are we able to transform them to be public health officers?
All right.
Are we able to transform them to be nurses, so that as we talk about sending nurses to Europe and the rest of the world, part of those could be our clinical officers. But retooling, reskilling, and upskilling is fundamental.
Tuva, let me bring this to your attention. 70,000 is the number of jobs the Federation of Kenya Employers say have been lost. In fact, let's talk about the alarming rates of layoffs.
Yeah.
And they're saying that the report now shows the expectation of subdued consumer activity can be attributed to declining incomes, all right, due to prevailing challenges in the private business landscape. So not only are we talking about civil, servants who at some point are told their money might delay, but this is the current situation of the Kenyan watching this morning.
Yeah.
They have been fired, and this is 70,000 is a lot of Kenyans. So when we're talking about revenue earlier on, where do you expect it from?
Yeah.
Are you taxing these same people?
Yeah. So the truth of the matter is, as entrepreneurs, it must make business sense.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're doing a business which you employed 5 people, 6 people, and you're not able to sustain them, or business has gone down, or you're not making enough money, the situation will lead you to actually lay them off. It's a natural cause of action. So there's really nothing we can do. However, the permanent solution here is to give ourselves enough proper skills, as he mentions, proper skills, right? And in this day and age, everything is going digital, right? So where should we lean towards? So proper skills, right, which allows them to become entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs means there are more slots for people to plug in, right, to be able to do the actual business, right? However, the national government, county government need to find a way of digitizing these people who are actually applying for these jobs. Do we even know where their skills? I'm not employing this person. Why? Right? So is there a digitization of this labor market to know where are we falling short and what should we do about it? So it shouldn't be just, okay, throwing away CVs after we get them. We should be able to say, okay, fine, we didn't employ this gentleman or this lady because of ABCD. How do we then now, as a government, national government or county government, sit down and say, okay, fine, this is where we need to put more talent in, right? So analyzing the data, the labor absorption, the quality of skills, And I've seen counties who are very proactive about enabling entrepreneurs, right? I know of Kilifi. They have something called the Wezesha Fund, right? So the governor came in and told, okay, fine. For every LSO, LPO we give you, I'll make sure that through our local bank, KCB, they're partnering to make sure that, 60% of whatever you get as an LSO is given to you. And you have no idea how impactful this is. Right. So if other counties or even national government, I know national government has other ways, maybe through AGPO and whatever, they have other ways of making sure that businesses are able to stay afloat. But maybe we need to have a more proactive way for counties to enable people get money, because the people who hang themselves, the people who let's call them pending bills, is because they got a job, they spent all their money, right, to do this project, and we're not able to recoup. So we should find a way of making sure that we're able to make sure these entrepreneurs are able to sustain their businesses. Else, the bottom line is the layoffs.
I know our eyes are still on Bunge Towers. The president is probably arriving shortly, or has arrived, and we're going to go there. But before we do, Professor Ira, I know there's so many youths who knock your door and they say, please employ me. But there are also some who say, I was working, but I don't see it translating to sustaining my family. What would be your point?
It's an interesting debate, because one of the things I get every day is youngsters sending me their CV. And they tell me, can you get me a job? Then I ask them, which job? And they tell me, any. And I get very worried when somebody tells me, get any job. Because that tells you are not prepared for the market. So one of the reasons why we are having a lot of people missing jobs is because of what we are calling skills mismatch. What our high schools, what our universities or institutions produce is not commensurate with what the market is demanding. The demand and supply are not matching. And we need to look at the institutions that train our students, whether they are technical institutions, whether they are schools, whether university, whether it is Q. They need to come together and find out what is the market looking for and what are we taking to the market. And I'll give you a good example. 75% of the students in Kenya universities are in social sciences. They are not in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But if you go outside, not just in Kenya, but beyond, we are looking for STEM people. And one of the reasons why you find Indians dominating those big jobs is because right from around 1931, when Indians started winning Nobel Prizes in physics, they have always focused on STEM. And that's where the jobs are. And the jobs are transferable. And you can see the difference. So let's look at job market and remember it obeys the rules of supply and demand. Number two, why we are having few jobs is because of those projects that are incomplete, those bills that are not paid. Because once a project stalls, some people have to go home. And you can see the cost of corruption, because if projects are escalated, we are not able to pay for them, they are never complete. And the people working there lose their jobs. So the creating jobs is not just a question of looking at the youth, but also the environment they work in. A very interesting argument I brought here several, and I will always bring it when I come here, is that we expect the wrong people to create jobs for us.
We expect the wrong people?
Yes. Okay. So what I want is this student who gets an A in KCP, who gets first class honors, who gets an A in KCSE, they should not be saying they want to be doctors or engineers. They should be saying they want to be entrepreneurs. Because creating a Google, creating an IBM, creating a Facebook is not for the school dropouts. So the day we are going to get these A students going to entrepreneurship, more jobs will be created. And just before I forget, we must remember that information is power, as you put it. Our students in high school and universities don't have information on the jobs that are available and the skills that are needed. If you go to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, they have a whole website that shows you job projections for the next 10 years. The fastest growing jobs, the declining jobs, the salaries, and the skills that are needed. We need such a database in this country, so that when I'm in high school, when I'm in primary school, and I'm going to graduate 10 years from now, I can start projecting which job I need to take now, or which job I need to prepare for now, so that I'll be marketable in future. And let's also let's look at the environment, taxes, regulations.
And I was going to come to that.
Because if you want people to create jobs, you must make the environment conducive. So I have always complained that there's so much talk about taxes, but not about the taxpayers. So KRA should set a consulting wing so that they come and help me expand my business, so that I pay more taxes. not just focusing on the taxes. And finally, let's focus on lifelong learning, because some of the skills our graduates come out from the university with become irrelevant with the time.
Become irrelevant.
Yes, nobody used to talk about artificial intelligence 10 years ago. Nobody used to talk about blockchains 10 years ago. But if you have graduated from the university, you don't fold your arms. You learn new skills and you become more marketable.
All right.
And if possible, to an extent that we can export you.
Okay, so let me also bring in, because we're speaking to the Kenyans this morning, I was just, perusing through social media, because sometimes it is a full representation of the people that we bring here on air. And there is an online sensational media personality. She's a young lady, and some people would relate to this. And she said, I'll read directly. Sometimes kuishi Nairobi inakuwa ngumu. All right, that's what she said. The weather is difficult to deal with. Everyone wants to con you. People lie. Chapati nne na beans, say chapo madondo, is 500 shillings. That's what she wrote. Asema ningebaki tu kiptembwa. All right, and I'm reading this directly because this is how the Kenyans speak on the ground. And I think one of you said that life shouldn't be as difficult in Nairobi. Things are cheaper in Nairobi. But this is something I've pulled directly from a Kenyan just yesterday on their social media, saying afadhali ningekaa ushago. But I don't know what you have to say about this, because saying people should live within their means, this is what they're talking about. Saying everybody is going to con you.
There is maybe the only guaranteed thing in the village is shelter. Food and access to other needs become a challenge because of the setting in terms of economic viability and actual production. So I would encourage the lady or the person writing the statement to stay as much as they can in the city. And like we say, it's a shamba la mawe. So you do what you have to do to survive, but you have to up your game again. It's not getting any easy. We've talked about taxation, and I'm glad that Prof is bringing the other end of facilitating taxpayers to generate more, which is a good thing. But I began this by saying that access to markets and access to regional market, for example, is such a big enabler, not just on the actual revenue generation, but creation of employment. I gave you a typical example of a multinational in Nairobi which is not able to export to the local market, the regional market.
I'm sorry to cut you short, because what you're saying is equally very important, but we have a very key development happening right now on your screen, all the way from Bunge Towers. That is President William Ruto, who this morning is officially opening the Bunge Towers, which will serve as the offices for members of Parliament and the senators. Of course, you can see there, we're trying our best to get you the pictures, and we are still right in there, and we'll give you the pictures as soon as they're back with us on screen. And this is after the construction of the tower was completed, after taking over 14 years and costing the taxpayer at least 9.6 billion shillings. The tower has state-of-the-art offices, according to the information we have, conferences, conference rooms for committee meetings, a gym, a kitchen, a restaurant, 4 basement parkings, a tunnel, among other facilities. Gentlemen, I know it is important what we're discussing today, but also in relation to the Bunge Towers. This is where we oversight the same resources, so we cannot really ignore that the Bunge Towers are being opened today. With the guidance of my director, as we wait for these images, perhaps we can also still go back to you. I cut you short earlier on the taxation conversation. So please pick it up from there, and then we can always go back to the Bunge Towers once we have the pictures. But the president is already there.
Yeah. Yes. So I was reinforcing the fact that Prof raised the aspect of facilitating taxpayers to be able to do more and generate more for the economy, but access to markets, both local and regional. We've talked about enabling business environment, not just enabling business environment in Nairobi, but can Nairobi trade with Kampala without much of the bottlenecks and the roadblocks that we are experiencing? If that happens, then definitely we'll not be talking about cutting of the opportunities for the graduate trainees that are supposed to have joined those companies this year. And it's not just them. When we're talking about 70,000 jobs lost, on average, you're talking about 50,000 shillings per household. That's 3.5 billion every single month that is gone. It's also gone with the pay that government collects. So it's incumbent upon government to create more, to generate, to facilitate, to ensure that people are able to generate jobs as to opposed to shrinking the economy. The last thing I would say, Doris, is the aspect on career guidance has been mentioned by the Ministry of Labor, having to come up with a framework. It's so much important that last week we were talking to private schools, for example, in Kenya, on the possibility of beginning the conversation early enough with the primary school kids. As we talk about the CBC pathway, where STEM is involved, the social sciences, the creatives and sports,
yes,
or the arts and sports. How do we, for example, determine students that are going to take STEM? How do we arrive at that? So we have to adopt tools that then help us to assess the potential and the strength of a student towards leaning towards a direction, because jobs, careers are determined from ground up. So we develop these skills from primary schools to high schools and then to universities and colleges, so that employability then at the end of the day does not become a question, because you've taken care of the interest, you've taken care of the learning styles, you've taken care of professional guidance and so forth. And I think it's a good progress, but they need to collaborate more with the Ministry of Education, stakeholders that are in the space, so that we equip our youth to get ready for the market. Each time a job is lost, I fear for our young people.
Right, and I just want to now, of course, as we are closing the show, I'll come, Professor. I was, and Kenyans have found a way to not just donate to each other when there's a disaster through a pay bill, etc., but I've seen interesting use of social media. There's a platform called Bizna Kenya, all right, surviving in Kenya. Interesting, gentlemen. And how to survive with 20K salary was a question asked in Kenya. This is a security guard with a wife and at least 2 children, and that breakdown. But when I looked at how much in just checking, he said you can break it down to a 50-20-30 rule. And I'm curious to understand, because someone is earning 7,000, a house manager probably 7,000 to 10,000 shillings. That is still a Kenyan. They're not in the ladder that we're talking about, 150,000 or 30,000. So please talk to this Kenyan this morning. Let us give them free consultation on how the president said live within our means. But this Kenyan who is earning 10, 7,000, 20,000, how do you live within your means and stay comfortably, pay school fees, and still, not also pollute the environment?
That's a very hard question, but I'll try to attempt it. But
Yes.
before I go to your question, this lady who wrote to you on social media about lack of trust, everybody's conning you and so on,
Yes.
she's right. I think one of the biggest killers of jobs in this country is lack of trust. When you get started a business, one of your biggest tasks is to stop people from stealing from you. They don't realize that if they are honest and the business experts, they get promoted, they get a bigger market, they learn how to start their own jobs in future. So I think trust is a very big problem. And number 2, when you talk about countryside suffers from brain drain.
Okay.
Remember all your classmates who are top number 1, number 2, number 3, they all came to the city. So who was left in the countryside to create jobs and opportunities? So to talk about 10,000, I think one of the things that I've respected about Kenyans is how they're resilient and how creative they are. Like nowadays, when I go to WhatsApp groups, they are not for greeting one another. They have become markets. Somebody is selling honey, somebody is selling onions, somebody is selling something. So that's one way Kenyans have survived, by supplementing their income. Now, there's 28 rule. They are simply saying I have 10,000. What is the most important thing I need to start with?
Right.
They start with that. Then they ask what can wait, and that waits. But let's also not underestimate the Kenyans' generosity and the benevolence. you have relatives, you have friends, you have neighbors. They are all willing to help you.
Is it the true picture on the ground really that right now you have relatives? Because somebody told me, well, who will you ask money from right now?
That's a problem. And that's why Kenyans are raising those issues on social media, because they're saying, we have reached the limit. I have borrowed money from all the people that I know. So there are some people nowadays, you call them, they not pick your phone because they know you are borrowing money. And that's why we always talk about safety net by the government.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, there will be always people who fall through the cracks. The government in its own wisdom did something very good called the stipend for those who are over 70. But I think it's high time we started also looking for the people who are unemployed. Because some people don't miss jobs because they don't want to work. Sometimes the circumstances. So let's not just look at the people who are over 70, but people unemployed. We have been able to import the American Constitution with the senators and so on. Why can't we also try and import a bit of their welfare state? Because there will always be people who are disadvantaged. And an advanced society should take care of such people.
All right. Let me hear from you, Tuva, on this aspect, and indeed just making sure we relate, not just with the billionaires in the country.
Yeah.
But the common Mwananchi.
Okay. I'll take you back to the young lady.
Yes. And mark you, she's a media personality.
Yeah.
And she works, and she is known. She's a celebrated personality. But she says, I'd rather go back to the rural area. It's crazy out here.
Yeah. So there's some truth to it, and I think one of the panelists was saying that maybe, let's stick to the city. I don't think that's the truth. There's so much opportunity that was brought by devolution. A lot, right? So such a person, it's just that the skill, I'll tell you for free, I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
We've literally come to Nairobi. We're establishing something else elsewhere. And we've come to Nairobi to pick 2 new employees to take to that particular region, because maybe that particular might not have enough skills. So the thing is, you need to grow your skills. So you being a famous person does not put money on the table, but does not put food on the table, right? You doing those TikTok things might not be significant enough. So are you able to develop a skill which is long-term, which can serve you long-term? Are you a software developer? Are you, a news anchor? Are you a professor? Because they stay for very long. So what they need to do is just improve. Because even leave alone people from other regions. You're talking about people from Somali, Sudan, traveling all the way to Kenya to pick our talent to do their work. And these are big government projects, right? They fly in, spend a whole week, and they pick talent from us. So the solution is not to stay in Nairobi. If there's opportunity, if you go back to where you're born and you're the best cyber, trust me, everyone will come give you business.
So would the solution be the government to lower taxes? Work on their tax bracket?
That is one. And someone else will also say solution is maybe to lower your expenditure, because bread is bread. You cannot buy it at a lesser cost. So there's some basic expenses you have you cannot lower. So how do you then think 5 years into the future that, okay, fine, in 2 years I don't want to have this issue. So how again do I look at improving my skills so that my skills earn me more money? That will be the permanent solution, not to try and break down the whatever. So build your skill so that when people are looking for the right person, they see you. That will be my solution.
I want us to close this show in a short while, but I want to get your closing remarks very quickly. Just share it amongst yourself. I think 30 seconds each, quite short, but I know. Panda, what would be your closing remarks this morning?
Doris, I would say that the economy has to work for Kenyans, like you keep insisting, the local Mwananchi. Government has an innate responsibility to build the macros so that we stabilize at the macro level. We have to open up our borders, take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, take advantage of the entrance of Somalia and the coming of Ethiopia into the East African market, so that we expand the space and push in our young people to take advantage of that market.
Thank you.
Jobs must be created for the youth.
All right. Professor.
Mine is very simple. I would tell the young men and women of this country that the people who employ you don't employ you as an individual, as Kamau or a Nyango or a Kinyi. They employ your skills.
All right.
So find out what you can take to the market. Number 2, I would probably ask the government of Kenya Kwanza, if there's a legacy I would like them to leave with this country, is stemming corruption.
All right.
If they can do that for this country, tame corruption, it will be a long-lasting legacy.
Thank you very much for your closing remarks, Tuva.
Yeah.
Any last words? Just 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So 3 things: devolution, skills, entrepreneurship.
All right.
So devolution in terms of let the national government put more effort into stabilizing county resources. Skills, as individuals, well, let's figure out how do we, as Prof said, long-term skills, right?
Okay.
Entrepreneurship, after you learn the skills, why don't you also employ other people? So those would be my last remarks. Yeah, devolution, skills, entrepreneurship.
All right.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
one
very
more.
much. So I want to just, of course, leave you with the very key development this morning from the Bunge Towers, but allow me to appreciate Tuva Adams Tuva, who is the economist, advisor, and MD Adams Group. Thank you for creating time. Philip Pandey, Youth Inclusion Advisor, for your time this morning. Professor Iraki, we appreciate you. He is an economics analyst. And for you back at home, for sharing essentially what you feel and what is going on for you back at home. Remember that the GDP is projected to grow at least for 5.6% in 2023, but 6% in 2024. We'll be right here every day, every Thursday, to try and understand how this will translate to your pockets. Schools are opening soon. Remember, floods are still raging. Stay vigilant, stay on the hotlines, and keep safe. My name is Anki Doris Sumbat. Until tomorrow, same place, same time, stay woke.